Hey guys, I'm Matt, and welcome to my weekly What Am I Doing This Week video. For the topic this week, I'm going to talk about heating my house with wood. We're going to talk about the wood stove that I have, sourcing firewood, the different kinds of firewood that I have available and what I like and what I don't like, and also a couple of different methods of splitting firewood. Now, some of this is probably going to bring up some debate inside the comments, and that's fine. What I'm bringing is just my experience. What is my experience? Well, the house that I grew up in, that I was born and raised in, was a plaster and lath old house built in the 1800s, no insulation in the walls, and our only source of heat was a wood stove. So we burned a lot of firewood. And then when I was in high school, I actually had a business for several years, cutting, splitting, and delivering firewood. So I've cut and split a lot of firewood. Now, of course, when I was in the Navy, no firewood. However, I've been out for 22 years, and we've burned firewood for our only source of heat for our house ever since then. Now, I had a wood-burning furnace in our old house, which made our hot water, and it was also plumbed in with the ducting in the house. So we burned about 8 cords of wood a year at that house. Now, at my new house, we have a really neat little wood-burning stove in the kitchen, and it's actually got an oven in it, as well as a cooktop on the top. And the firebox is really small, but it's actually a really neat little unit. So we'll show you that in just a little bit. Now, why heat with firewood? Well, one of the real advantages around here is that your heating fuel literally falls out of the sky. So my property here at the new house is lined with alder trees here and fir trees down the back right here, all the way down the property line, clear as far as you can see there. And so, you know, anytime we get a bit of a windstorm, we get limbs down. And one limb with our current fireplace is good for about 2 days of heat. So our fuel falls out of the sky. The other nice thing is that you can dispose of things that you would otherwise have to throw away or open burn to get rid of, and turn those into heat for the house. And I got a good example here. Left over from a project, I got a bunch of 2x8s that have been cut down into not quite firewood sized pieces, but I am working on that. And those are awesome. You know, there's probably 2 or 3 wheelbarrow loads of firewood right here, and 1 wheelbarrow load lasts me about 2 days. So this pile of what would otherwise be garbage is 6 days of heat for the house. Well, this is our neat little nectar fireplace that we have in our kitchen. Let me open up the flue here. I do have a fire going in here right now, but I got it dampered down because it's daytime and it's fairly warm out. While we're talking, that fire will tend to stoke itself up here. It's got a neat little oven on the bottom. I will say the oven can actually be a little bit difficult to use. On the top shelf it's like 500 degrees, and on the bottom shelf it's 300, so there's no in between. It's generally is a little too cold, or it burns things. But I have found that if I'm careful with it, like if I prop the door open when I'm cooking something on the top shelf, that lets some of that excess heat out, and that actually works pretty good. So pretty neat little unit. You know, it's just a wood stove here, but we found that this thing heats the whole house. If we keep a fire going in here 24/7 during the winter, the heat pump cycles on and off. I mean, for, you know, maybe 20 minutes in the morning. I have it set on a Ecobee intelligent thermostat, and so just turns the heat pump on in the morning to kind of bump that temperature up right before we get up, so the house is warm when we get out of bed. And that's really the only time that it runs. So heating is essentially free, other than the labor that it takes to cut and split the firewood. Pretty neat little unit. Have never seen one of these fireplaces before. I did a little research on them when we bought the house, and they're actually a pretty expensive little fireplace. But we've really liked it. It's worked really well so far. And yeah, and just in the time that we've been talking, all I did was I opened up the damper a little bit and popped open the flue, and now we got a really good fire going here. But we don't need that today, so we'll close the damper down and close the flue. That slows the fire down. All right, let's talk about firewood species selection. Now, I think your geographic location is really going to dictate what kind of firewood that you burn. So in my case, I live in the Pacific Northwest, specifically on the west side of the Coast Range in Northwest Oregon. Most common trees here are going to be Sitka spruce and western hemlock and red alder. By far, that's the most common. Now, as you get further east, you start to see some Douglas fir, and as you get up higher in elevation, then you'll start to see some true fir species like noble and grand fir. But by far and away, the most common tree species that we have available here are the spruce, the hemlock, and the alder. Now, I will burn all three. I have no problem with any of them. However, I'm going to tell you right now that spruce sucks bad to try and hand split. Hemlock is not much better until it's well seasoned. They're both just really difficult trees to split. And so I'm really trying to avoid those if I can. Alder, you know, is quite easy to split, and it's really easy to come by because it's often discarded after a logging operation. They'll leave big decks of alder up on the landing and they won't ever come and get it. It'll just rot away. And so those are fairly easy to come by here. So I burn more alder than anything else. If I can get my hands on Douglas fir, I definitely prefer that, but they rarely leave those behind after a logging operation. So that's a little bit harder to come by. If I'm willing to drive over to Central Oregon or Eastern Oregon, then I can get my hands on some pine species, and I actually like that the most. It smells the best, it's easy to split, burns well. It's just, that would be my favorite kind of wood, but I gotta drive a lot to get it. What I have here is some unsplit alder that I brought from my house. That's the stuff I've split and stacked so far. It actually sat outside for a little while during the move, and that's why the ends of the wood is kind of black. It's got some mold growing on it. The other stuff is also alder, but it was split and stacked while it was dry, so it looks a little bit nicer. But all the same species right there, almost all that's going to be red alder, and that's what we have here. So we're going to be splitting some red alder today. Pretty easy splitting, really, but it's good for demonstration purposes. Now what you see here are my two favorite splitting tools. On this side we've got a Husqvarna splitting axe. And on this side, we've got a Fiskars splitting maul. This is an 8-pound maul. Now, this is the part of my video that I'm sure is going to spark some debate. I've got tons of experience splitting wood, and I really think this is one of those things that you use the tool that works well for you. I will choose a splitting maul 99 times out of 100 for splitting tasks. I just like it better, and I can split faster with it, and there's nothing that I can't split with the maul. And I think a lot of that has to do with technique. I've got just over the years developed a good technique that utilizes that extra weight of the maul to build some really good momentum and just drive right through the wood. So my preference is always going to be the maul. There is almost no situation where I think that I can split better with the axe. However, I carry this Husqvarna axe in my truck or in my Samurai if I'm on a camping or off-road trip, and that's because this is a very versatile tool. It can be used for splitting, and I can split fairly quickly with it, but it can also be used for chopping, which the maul can't be used for. So if I've got to remove a tree that's in the roadway and my handsaw is too small for it, I can utilize that splitting axe right there to chop that tree and remove it. It can also be used as a driving tool for, say, de-beating a tire or something like that. It, however, cannot be used to strike metal on metal. That is a forged splitting axe. And so you cannot use it to drive a wedge through a piece of wood. With a maul, you can. So yeah, give me a splitting wedge and a maul, and I will be far happier than if I have my hands on a splitting axe. But I've owned a lot of both over the years, and again, my favorite two, Husqvarna forged splitting axe right here, and Fiskars 8-pound splitting maul right there. I'll post links to both of those in the video description. If you're interested in them, you can buy them off of Amazon. I'm sure Home Depot has, I think, the Fiskars available anyway. But let's set a couple of rounds up outside and take a couple of swings and split some firewood. Well, there you have it, my little tiny contribution to the axe versus maul debate. I don't know if I've solved anything. I've probably just added fuel to the fire, but my take is, hands down, I'll pick up the splitting maul every single time if the task is to split wood. If I need a little bit more versatile tool, I'll take the axe with me. It's the one that rides in my trucks. You guys saw several times it took more than one swing with the axe to do that initial split on the wood, whereas the maul was just a single swing. You know, the lightness of the axe is offset by the fact that sometimes I just got to swing it more. And I really don't feel more tired when I'm swinging the maul. It's not really a strength thing. It's more of a momentum thing. The movement is sort of a circular, bring it around and use the momentum of that extra mass to just bash through the woods. So anyway, that's my take. Hopefully you guys got something from the video. And yeah, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on next week's video.